Agent Romanoff. You miss me?
Oh yeah, Charles, we got ourselves an X-Men fan.
Captain.
Your Highness.
Captain, big fan, Spider-Man. Hey everyone.
Hey guys, and welcome to Filmartsy, your number one source for all things films and movies. And over the years, throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the movies have really introduced some amazing characters that have grown into some of the most beloved people we've seen in a lot of these movies, and the fan base seems to really appreciate. But along the way, there's also been some characters that have been introduced and have been really interesting, but maybe also have been somewhat underutilized. So today we thought we would take a look at some of the worst utilized characters over the course of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and talk a little bit about some of these characters and why we feel like they were not fully used to their potential. Let's go ahead and jump into this. First and foremost, we'll go all the way back to the first Iron Man movie and look at the Iron Man movies as a trilogy. But if we look at the character Raza, who was this antagonistic character right away at the very beginning, who was responsible for Tony Stark being held captive in that whole first arc of the movie. And honestly, this was a really unique character that probably would have led to much higher tension and stakes facing off against Tony Stark in the later half of the movie had the character actually made it to the later half of the movie. Instead, while we ended up getting a really interesting plotline and interesting conflict at the end, we always wonder what would have happened had Raza just made it a little bit further into the later stages of the movie.
साफ बताओ यहाँ क्या हो रहा है
कुछ भी नहीं ना
मुझे बेवकूफ समझते हो
Now, Iron Man 2, on the other hand, also had a pretty underutilized villain with Justin Hammer, a character that actually, to this day, a lot of people still petition Marvel should think about considering bringing back in one way or another, just because there's a lot of big question marks around this character, and we never really got to see what becomes of this character, though he had some pretty captivating scenes where he stole the show in some ways or another. And while Iron Man 2 did a lot of great things, such as introducing Rhodey as War Machine and kind of developing, Don Cheadle as the character in that movie.
Take you there. Tony, I swear to God, I'll blow his face off. Oh, and this next bit may include the Vice President as well. Is that important?
Somewhat.
Yeah, a little bit.
So, what are we gonna do when we don't have any transport? Hey.
In Iron Man 3, we definitely did feel like Rhodey was kind of backseated a little bit. He does a little bit with the Iron Patriot stuff, but we don't get to see him fully don the awesome War Machine stuff again, and it would have been something we would have really liked to see in Iron Man 3, just so it felt like a story that was building off of Iron Man 2 a little bit more. Still, Iron Man 3 worked out, but it would have been an extra plus to the movie. And real quick, we wanted to give a huge shout out to our Instagram page. If you guys didn't know, we just passed over 8,000 followers over on Instagram, so we'd really appreciate if you guys headed over to our Instagram, scrolled through some of our posts, maybe hit the like button and followed us over there. We do a lot of really interesting content if you love comic books, the MCU, DCEU, whatever it is. If you just like movies, it's a really cool page. We've been working really hard on it, and it would mean the world to us if you went over and checked it out as well. Shifting gears, we can actually look to Captain America, the First Avenger, and if we look at the character Jim Morita, this character is kind of iconic when it comes to the Captain America comic books and is one of the characters that always follows Steve Rogers on a lot of his adventures. And unfortunately, with the fact that they had to find a way to make Avengers happen, and they decided to do the time jump, bringing Captain America to the futuristic year of 2011, 2012, somewhere around there, this character ended up kind of getting left behind. Of course, we got to see Bucky Barnes at least make his way, but this other character was kind of like the third to their trio, and it's a shame we never really got to see him make a return. It was really cool, however, though, that in Spider-Man Homecoming, it actually is revealed that this Jim Morita character's grandson is the principal at Peter Parker's school, and it has the same actor who played in that first Captain America movie.
I think what's kind of special about him is that he doesn't really have any superhuman powers. He's just kind of, he's got this super strength, but he can't fly. Bullets don't bounce off of him, so he's got that vulnerability about him. And I just think the whole character of Steve Rogers and how he began, he had a lot of faults, he had a lot of physical weakness, and then for him to transform into this kind of superhero, I think that a lot of people can relate to that kind of person.
Also, on the note of the Captain America movies, in Civil War, Crossbones was definitely a character that was pretty heavily underused, and also Zemo kind of didn't really get to do as much. He definitely was this side villain character for the sake of them needing a villain character for the movie when there was this kind of internal conflict going on, but he definitely hasn't gotten to go much further than that. We'll be interested to see what they end up doing in the Disney Plus series with the Falcon and Winter Soldier, with this character who's confirmed to make his return. Now, a lot of the times, The Incredible Hulk, that movie from 2008 that had Edward Norton as Hulk instead of Mark Ruffalo, is overlooked, but it is in fact part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Matter of fact, Thaddeus Ross is this character that shows up in Civil War. We know he's going to be in the next Black Widow movie from the trailer, and is this one link keeping the Hulk relevant to the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at least before the first Avengers movie. But we definitely feel like Betty Ross, the main love interest of Bruce Banner in that first movie, was completely disregarded and sidelined, and we never even heard from her again, even though she's the daughter of Thaddeus Ross, who's this major character in the MCU. So we'd really like to see more of this character, or at least know what happened to this character all those years later.
It must be the nanomeds, it must be the gamma exposure, but we've never seen any effect like this before.
No, deeper. The gamma just unleashed what was already there.
Unleashed what?
Me.
It's okay.
In Thor: The Dark World, they introduced a lot of extra characters who were supposed to be more involved in the Thor story and built up as other heroes that we could look to. We saw the introduction of Volstagg, Fandral, and Hogun, and they were really kind of developed in an interesting way, and probably one of the few really cool things that a lot of people liked in Thor: The Dark World. And unfortunately though, with the change of direction that Thor Ragnarok needed to take, and that movie was great, these three characters that were developed so much got quickly and swiftly written off in Thor Ragnarok. Just barely any acknowledgement, and they were gone. And that was really interesting, at least. Hey, at least Zachary Levi ended up getting to be in Shazam, which was a pretty good movie. Also, while we're on the topic of Thor Ragnarok, we would have really loved to see just a little bit more of Korg, just because there's so many amazing scenes. Taika Waititi, the director of the movie, also voiced the character and just did a great job with him. In Captain Marvel, Phil Coulson was a character that a lot of people were really excited to see. They loved him in Avengers, and the fact that they brought this character back in Captain Marvel was such an exciting moment to finally see him back after all of these years, and he kind of was just barely there. I mean, he had a couple of good scenes, and there was some good stuff with this acknowledgement of him doing the right thing and still being that character we all like, but we definitely didn't get to see him maybe fleshed out as much as we thought we would after the last time we saw him way back in the Avengers movie. If we look to Ant-Man, Darren Cross, the villain of the first movie, was actually a really awesome fleshed out villain, and it seemed like more recently some of these villains that are introduced in these standalone films don't necessarily have the same intricate story or backstory kind of showing off the character's motives. And Darren Cross was actually a great change of pace from that, as the character had fair motives, and you could always understand his reasoning as to why he was so aggressive and why he was frustrated before fully diving in and becoming this villainous character. And we kind of wish he would have made it beyond the first Ant-Man and existed in the larger MCU or in Ant-Man and the Wasp, just because of how well written that character was. And we'd love to see him reappear in a flashback or something sometime in the future. Also, on the regards to Ant-Man, if we look at the sequel Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ghost was introduced as the villain for the second movie, and honestly just didn't really have that much development at all to make the character relevant enough for us to care about in the same way we were invested in the story of Darren Cross. So Ghost is another character that was kind of underutilized, but in a very different way. And this character does get to escape. We don't really know what happens after that, but it is interesting nonetheless that we see such a huge difference between these two characters, especially with one of them who will likely appear in the future without us really understanding why the character is the way that they were. So these were our picks for just some of the characters that kind of were underutilized in the MCU. Do you agree with our picks? Let us know in the comments down below. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on for more videos like this, uploaded every single day of the week. That's it for today. We'll see you all next time with a brand new video.
I'm about to.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Hi. See you guys.